I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Historic Preservation Commission special meeting, August 4th, 2020. City Clerk, could you please take roll call?
Yes. Chair Edwards.
Here.
Council, excuse me, Commission Member Ball.
Here.
And Morse.
Here.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Ball, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, would you all please stand? Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item on the agenda, the oath of office for our new appointed member, Gabriel Mendoza.
Okay, Mr. Mendoza, you can join me over here. Come on. If you can face me that way, and raise your hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Gabriel Mendoza,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
without any mental reservation or
Purpose of
purpose
evasion.
of evasion,
That I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so you can keep that copy there. Oh, no, here, keep this copy for yourself, and then I just need you to sign this copy for me, right here.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Now did you see?
Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is election of chair and vice chair. Anybody who would like to make a motion to elect the new chair? Anybody?
I'll make a motion to keep Teresa as chair, the most knowledgeable and been around the longest.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And we need a roll call, please.
Okay, so we have a motion and second to reappoint Chair Edwards to continue serving as chair for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Roll call. Commission Member Ball,
Yes.
Mendoza,
Yes.
Morse,
Yes.
and Edwards.
Yes,
Thank you. You will continue serving as chair.
thank you. I'm appreciative of that. And then we want to select a vice chair. We have a motion for a person for vice chair. I would like to nominate Carolyn Morse.
I'll second that.
Can we get a roll call?
Okay. We have a motion and a second to elect Commission Member Morse to serve as vice chair for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Roll call. Commission Member Ball,
Yes.
Yes.
Mendoza, Morse,
Yes.
and Chair Edwards.
Yes,
Thank you. Vice Chair Morse.
thank you. All discretionary actions before the Historic Preservation Commission are advisory in nature, and final actions will be confirmed, modified, or deleted by City Council. Public comments. This is the time persons viewing and wishing to address the Historic Preservation Commission regarding matters not on the agenda may be heard via an email sent to the Deputy Clerk. Deputy Clerk, do we have any emails? Public?
No, I have not received any public comments email.
All right. Discussion item. A, mitigation measures for the Paloma Business Park project. Cultural Resources Consultant. Bill, welcome. Would you like to introduce the report?
Yes, I thought before I got into that, I would talk a little bit about CEQA because we have a new commissioner and we have a fairly new commissioner, and probably all of us could use a little refresher on CEQA. The question is, why do we have mitigation measures? And there's a reason for it. The California Environmental Quality Act, otherwise known as CEQA, mostly pertains to environmental issues, but it has a section that pertains to historic preservation. And what it says is that if a property has been designated or found eligible for a historic resource, either at the local level, state level, or federal level, that it has protections under CEQA. And basically what that says is that when you talk about actions, there are ministerial actions and there are discretionary actions. Ministerial actions are like building permits. You simply come in, you want your permit, they check to make sure you meet the codes, and you get your permit. Discretionary are ones that require some action by a board or commission or by the city council. And in this case, we have a property which was found eligible for the National Register, and the city council decided that they would allow for the demolition of the property. Now, in order for them to do that, they have to make a finding of overriding considerations. And that basically means that they say that there are other considerations involved that are more important than the preservation of the property. And they did make that finding. So once you are going to be demolishing a historic resource, you need to establish mitigation measures. And per CEQA, you cannot mitigate the demolition of a historic resource to a level of less than significant. It's simply not possible. But what you do is you mitigate it to the greatest extent possible. So in the case of this property here, the Engrams property, we have mitigation measures that are designed to help to mitigate the impact of demolishing the historic resource. So I've got a PowerPoint that I prepared to go over the mitigation measures, and I'll go ahead and get into that. First of all, are there any questions about CEQA? Okay. And if anybody ever has a question about that, I'm available by email, by phone. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions about CEQA or any other historic preservation measures. Okay. So we're going to be looking at the mitigation measures for the Engrams property, which is going to be demolished, and for which we're going to be trying to make up for that demolition as much as we can. The first thing that is on the mitigation measures list is that we will, we're asking that a up to 2,500 square foot addition be put on the historical room to expand its capacity. The historical room presently is completely crowded and has very little room for any purposes other than storing things and processing things. So we're asking the developer to add on to the historical room. And Teresa was responsible for the floor plan, so I'm going to turn it over to Teresa to explain the floor plan.
Actually, it was a joint effort between myself and Chuck, who's the archival consultant. And everybody knows best what we need to fulfill, our mission and our duties there.
Excuse me, Chair, do you have your mic on?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, we just figured out how much space we would need in order to deal with the Eisen exhibit, which we plan on creating a permanent Eisen exhibit. And obviously, the part in the red is the space that we have right now on the left, and the part in the green on the right-hand side is the addition that we would like to have. And basically doubling the size of the space. Right now, when we're in that red area, we're just on top of each other. We're sitting in the middle of the exhibit room, the archival collection, and everything is crammed into that space. So we figured out how much stuff we have, how much we're going to get, the Eisen exhibit, and whatever artifacts are coming from them. We also expect to grow. We're going to get a pretty big collection from Kevin Bash. We went to his home. We estimated the size of his collection. He has probably equal or more to what we already have as far as our Norco archives go. So we figured out how many storage shelves we need, how much space that would take in order to accommodate all that. And then we have added an extra workroom. We've added a handicap bathroom, and we've added a type of a break room. We have in the middle a work and research area to where the staff and archivists and people can come in and do our database, process the collection, and then have a research area for anybody that wants to come in, and we can accommodate them. We have tables and we have some workstations. We want to get about 3 or 4 workstations. The area to the far left is the stage area, and that's already kind of been designated as the Norco Hotel permanent exhibit. So every inch of that drawing is important. It's not fancy. It's minimal, but it's professional. And any change to that would be pretty much detrimental to what we want to accomplish there. So if you don't have any other questions, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Chuck, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that pretty well does it.
Okay. I'm controlled on Teresa. Yeah, the area in red is the existing, and the area in green is the addition. So you can see that it roughly doubles it. I did a little calculation on it. It ended up being, I came up with 2,268 square feet of addition. And as you can see, it's going to be immediately taken up with storage and with work-related things. So the need for it is definitely strong. Within the exhibit space, or within the heritage room, will be a permanent Eisen exhibit. And unfortunately, this pointer doesn't show up on that screen. It shows up below the screen. But as soon as you get it up there, it doesn't show up. But so to the left of the red dotted area in the middle is the Eisen exhibit. So that would be a permanent Eisen exhibit that would be right there. And that's another mitigation measure. We're talking about a 200 square foot permanent exhibit. And on the basis of $250 per square foot of the exhibit area, we would be looking at about $65,000. And that includes a portable exhibit as well. And obviously these figures are rough. We may need to increase them as we get more information on what we're going to be doing in that space. The other thing that is on the mitigation measures is that any archaeological materials that they uncover in the course of doing construction would be donated to the exhibit. And they're not going to have an archaeologist on hand full time, but they will have one on call. And if in the course of grading they start uncovering things, they're supposed to call that archaeologist in to evaluate what they've got and then direct work around that area if what they are finding is significant. There's also going to be a paleontologist involved, and I believe the paleontologist is actually going to be there throughout grading of the property, because they do think that there's potential for paleontological resources on the property. Mitigation measures 4 and 6 have to do with a historical interpretive monument for the Isons. And this little red circle in the middle is the corner of the entrance to the project. And then across from that, you see the red line on the exhibit. The red line represents a mural. The idea would be that you would have a monument on one side of the street, a mural on the other side of the street, and the two would work in concert with each other. People that are interested in the history of the property could both read the monument, take a look at the mural, and get a good sense for that. The way it's written up to the interpretive monument would have hitching posts, trees and benches, a water fountain. The idea being that it would be a place where people can sit down and rest if they want to, and in the process they can educate themselves about the egg ranch. The other mitigation measure has to do with the overhead track system. Chuck has indicated he would like to have that in the museum. This is a picture of it right here. It's kind of an interesting thing. Again, I can't make this thing show up on the screen. I don't know why. It's made up of a bunch of C-clamps that are welded to a rod, circles in a circular fashion. And apparently they use that in the course of processing eggs in that building. And Chuck, did you want to say something about the track?
I guess if you take a look at this, it's safe to say we don't want the whole thing. But we would like a portion of it so that we can install that as part of the exhibit as the way things worked, and probably the only thing that would be original to the egg ranch that would be really kind of very visible to anybody that came in and looked at the exhibit.
Okay, moving right along. Another important aspect of what we would like the developer to fund would be a comprehensive context statement, a history basically of the Isons. We have quite a bit of information, but there's a lot more to be gathered. And you really can't create a monument or an exhibit without having the historical information to drive that, the nature of those two things. So mitigation measure 7 calls for the developer to fund a context statement to thoroughly evaluate, thoroughly cover the history of the Isons from their time in Europe and their time in the United States. And we would also ask that 2 copies of the report be placed in Norco College, libraries of Norco middle schools and high schools, and also at the city of Norco and the Norco Historical Room and the Norco Public Library. So the idea being that we would like this to be an educational opportunity, and this document can then be used for that purpose for people doing research or just wanting to learn about the history of Norco. Number 8, mitigation measure number 8, is a HABS report. To give you a little idea of what that means, the HABS report stands for Historical American Building Survey. And what it basically is that when you're going to demolish an historic resource, one of the things that's typically done is there is a HABS report done on the property. The HABS report involves taking large format photographs, drawings of the floor plans, and a report. And those items then come together as one document, and so anybody that would like to know what was there and what the nature of it was would be able to go to that report and they'd take a look at the contents, and they would have an idea of what was on that property before it was demolished. And the same thing in this, we would want 2 copies to be placed at the city of Norco, Norco Historical Room, Norco Public Library, Norco College, and the libraries of the middle and high schools serving Norco. This particular mitigation measure is the only one that gives a condition of when it has to happen. This has to happen before grading permits are issued, obviously, because if you issue grading permits, that involves the demolition of the property. So before a grading permit is issued, they have to do the ADS report. And then 9 and 10 have to do with name recognition. 9 calls for the business park to be changed in name from the Paloma Business Park to the Norco Farms Business Park. Number 10 has to do with the 2 main streets in the development, with the interstreet named Harry Eisen Way and the main cross street named Hilda Eisen Court. And all the mitigation measures would be subject to review of the Historic Preservation Commission and ultimately approval by the City Council. And that covers the mitigation measures. Are there any questions about that?
Thank you, Bill. Commissioner Ball, do you have any questions?
No, not at the moment.
Vice Chair Morse, do you have any questions?
No, no question.
New member Mendoza, do you have any questions?
No.
Chuck?
He doesn't have to
Okay.
question. He's not a commission member.
Okay. Okay, so I have written a report for the outreach subcommittee findings. We were assigned to make a report on those mitigation suggestions. And I wrote this report. It took me a while because I had some mixed feelings about some things. And I actually am going to read my original report. I had an edited report that came back to me, and I've decided to read my original report. So let me just start by saying this is the outreach subcommittee report, review of historical consultant Wilkman's mitigation measures regarding the Paloma Business Park development. Background analysis. On June 17th, 2020, City Council approved the demolition of the historically significant Eisenhouse garage and egg processing building. Their decision came as a surprise to the members of the Historic Preservation Commission who were present at that meeting, as it did not reflect the recommendation the council we had advised. 6 months prior, at our January 14th, 2020 Historic Preservation Commission meeting, we were presented with an opportunity to choose between 2 options to preserve the historically recognized structures. Option 1 was called the private option, and option 2 was called the public option. The private option would allow the developer to own and maintain the buildings in order to rent or incorporate into the business park. The public option would preserve the buildings and be used for museum purposes by the city. The Historic Preservation Commission voted for the public option 2-1. In spite of the Historical Preservation Commission recommending City Council to preserve the Eisen structures through the public option, the planning director reported to the council at the June 17th council meeting that the commission had voted in favor of the private option. At the January 14th commission meeting, we asked why this happened. And we got the answer of miscommunication, and it was correct in the staff report. With a little research, we found that the same miscommunication was included in the Planning Commission agenda of May 13th, 2020, reporting the HPC ultimately voted 2-1, recommending the private option. As chair of this committee, I do not know how or why our input was changed, but I feel it's very important to correct the record to show we voted for the public option in the early mitigation process. and I may need some advice from city clerk on how to correct that record. For whatever reason, our vote for the public option was incorrectly interpreted, either intentionally or unintentionally. It seems now it has worked in our favor. HPC was instructed by council to come up with more recommendations to honor and preserve the Eisen legacy in Norco. Fortunately, our historical consultant, Bill Wilkman, has done this, and his new mitigation measures are exemplary. The subcommittee supports his new proposals with the following comments. Measure 1, subcommittee strongly supports historical collection expansion. This is the most essential mitigation measure to maximize community benefit. It is imperative that the archival consultant, Chuck Wilson, the Historic Preservation Commission, the Outreach Subcommittee, and Heritage Room staff play a critical role in the design and implementation of this addition. We have spent innumerable hours on a workable floor plan to support our mission and future growth. We have designed a facility that is minimal but professional, and any changes must be weighed as they affect standards, procedures, and productivity. This measure should not be negotiable. Measure 2, subcommittee supports permanent and portable exhibits featuring Eisen legacy for educational purposes. Measure 3, subcommittee supports donation of all archaeological materials unearthed from Eisen property transferred to the Heritage Room. Measure 4, we'll see in the comments from Measure 6. Measure 5, subcommittee supports relocation of track system from egg processing building to Heritage Room for display in the permanent Eisen exhibit. Measure 6, subcommittee supports commemorative monument mural for Eisen legacy at the entrance of the Paloma Business Park. Perhaps the subcommittee could ask that the area would be an understated place of reflection for the Eisen story. Trees, a shady bench, and a water element would be appropriate, along with an invitation to visit the Heritage Room and see the permanent Eisen exhibit. Measure 7, subcommittee supports the creation and comprehensive context statement to serve as an educational document. Measure 8, subcommittee supports acquisition of the Historic American Building Survey, or HABS. Measure 9 and 10, subcommittee supports the incorporation of Eisen name recognition on business park signage. In summary, the subcommittee agrees with the historical consultant, Bill Wilkman, that the Historic Preservation Commission, including consultants Wilkman and Wilson, and the City Council should have review and approval authority over the implementation of all approved mitigation measures. This as well should not be negotiable. The subcommittee requests that all mitigation measures be approved before a development agreement is final between the City of Norco and the Palomino Business Park. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, just for clarification purposes, Bill, I thought the staff report was actually a recommendation by the outreach committee or subcommittee to the Historic Preservation Commission, and then for the Historic Preservation Commission to make a recommendation based on this to the City Council.
That's correct.
Looks like, so I'm not clear where the chairwoman's comments is
Were they following?
where they're falling. Yes, I'm just a little. This is a subcommittee's report,
Right.
which is to the HPC to then make recommendations. And just confirming what is on this report. I'm not sure why you're presenting it
Because I
separate.
thought it was important to acknowledge it and for it to become public record.
Okay.
That we had discussed it, we had attended to our responsibilities. by picking an option, and the option that we selected was somehow changed. And I understand people make mistakes, but when you find a paper record of that mistake, it's hard to ignore. And I just wanted it to become part of the public record, sir. May I get a motion for a recommendation to approve to move toward the city council recommendation? Okay, I move to approve the historical consultant, Bill Wilkins' mitigation measures, and that they be sent to the city council for approval.
Again, I want to make sure that we clarify that historic cultural resources consultant is staff persons working for staff. This is a recommendation from the outreach subcommittee to the city council.
This is a recommendation from this outreach subcommittee to the Historic Preservation Commission.
And this is a recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission to the city council.
Right.
You're not approving his recommendation, really, what he's.
We're approving it, we're all agreeing that we're going to send it to the city council.
Yeah, okay. But it's that, and what you're agreeing to is to send the
His mitigation
recommendations
measures.
from the subcommittee to the city council.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The ones
So
presented by the consultant, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
I need a second, please.
Anybody?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, roll call to recommend to the city council the presented mitigation measures as presented by the staff report by the consultant. Roll call, Chair Edwards,
Yes.
Vice Chair Morse,
Oh, yes.
Commission Member Ball,
Yes.
and Mendoza.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion has passed for recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, discussion item 4B, proposed demolition of the public powerhouse. I'd like to introduce City Manager Andy O'Connor for comment.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the commission. At the recommendation of the city attorney, I'm requesting for this item, I'm putting this item from the agenda. The city attorney believes this agenda item is not within the jurisdiction of the Historic Preservation Commission or the city council. This is an item that is within the jurisdiction of the California Public Utilities Commission, and for that reason, I am withdrawing this agenda item for discussion by the HPC.
Oh, that's interesting. City Clerk, do we still need to read the public
No,
comments?
as this has been billed, then no discussion and no comments are to be made. Thank you.
All righty. If there isn't any further business, we have nothing else to talk about. So, with your permission, the meeting is adjourned at 4:36.